Oi! Yes! My God, it's been a long week already, and it's only Wednesday night. This is the fourth straight night that I've been live on my channel. This will be the third Balls Deep breakdown of the week, you guys. This evening, we will be covering the UFC Vegas 47 bout between Jason Witt and Phil Rowe. A very interesting striker versus grappler matchup here, even though both, Witt's got good striking too, and Rowe's got really good grappling too. So a very interesting fight here, you guys, to break down. We're going to go at it like we always do. Tail of the tape, experience, finish stats, striking stats, grappling stats, strength of schedule, last five. And then we're going to look at the entire resume for both of these guys. See if we can find some angles in this line. It's a very interesting fight. It's got a lot of angles to it that we're going to have to cover from nose to toes here. So let's first see what you guys are up to in the chat. We got my guy Monk in here. I just did a show earlier with Monk on Pub Sports Radio. It is a DraftKings DFS show for MMA. Go check that out. The link is in the description of this video. And Monk's saying, first, you greasy so-and-sos. Jacob, what's up, Monk? What's up, chat? What's up? Dude, it's good to see you, man. And we got Victor De Jesus, friend of the show, in here saying, oi, yes, I got Rowe by KO from 7 feet away with those long-ass arms, dude. 80.5-inch reach on Philip Rowe, 70-inch reach on Jason Witt, 10.5-inch reach advantage. This dude is a 6'3" welterweight. I mean, that's not something you see every day. Witt is really kind of like more, he kind of looks like a gorilla, dude. I know, no wonder they gave him that Vanilla Gorilla nickname. He kind of looks like one, but he's built like one too. He's built like a wrestler. He's got the wide back, big lats, and he can absolutely wrestle people. This is going to be a great fight, man. That's why I figured. I was talking to the guys that I did the show with, Monk and Brady and Luke. And I was like, I'm going to have to figure out which fight to do. And Luke was like, oh, dude, do Rowe Witt, And so Brady said the same thing. I said, yeah, you know what? That's a good one to do. It's a very interesting fight to break down. All right. And we got my guy, Mark Schillingberg, friend of the show, in the room saying, Weezy, I straight up passed out last night watching just the tip. Think I went out around this fight and woke up as Weezy was signing off. Oi! Dude, well, thanks for hanging out anyway, man. It was a late show, man. We go from 10 o'clock Central until 12. If you're on the East Coast, the show isn't even over until 1 a.m. And then there are people in Europe who are waking up to the show. So it's definitely a late night show. Not everybody can stay awake for it. And I was beat after the show last night, and I'm going to be beat after the show tonight. I've been putting a lot of content out over the last 5 days, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Good to see you here, Mark. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. And we got David Dennett saying, going full oi for this banger. Let's get it, Weezy. Good to see you, David. We got my guy Lou Betya in the room. Witt Rose, the car crash I never knew I needed. Hell yeah, man. This is going to be a car crash. Paul Brassfield saying, oi, uncle. And we got Dazfile saying, oi. And Sergio Zabute saying, oi. I love saying oi over and over and over again for you guys. And I know that my guy Smooth Jimmy loves breaking down fights for you guys. Let me see if I can share my screen with you guys, get him on here, and then we can start looking at all the measurables and everything else that we need to for this fight, because there's some interesting little contrasts in the way these guys go about their business, and we're going to break it all down for you guys. So now that we got the screen up here, is Smooth Jimmy ready to go? Let's have a look-see. Yes, sir. All right, let's hide that. Let's go here. And we've got the Vanilla Gorilla Jason Witt versus Philip Rowe here. And we've got the stats up here on the screen. You guys, you can always download these stats. They're under matchup template in the description of this video. All the other videos that I've done this week, and there are a lot of them, are in there, except for the ones that I've done on my channel, because you already know where to find those. You're already here. So we'll start off with the tail of the tape for this fight, you guys. We got Phil Rowe checking in at 31 years of age. Jason Witt is 35. Like we mentioned, Phil Rowe is 6'3" tall. He's got a 4-inch height advantage. He's got an 80.5-inch reach. I'm going to put that little half inch in there because 80 is impressive enough. 80.5 is just the icing on the cake there. And we got both of these guys are orthodox fighters. We got Jason Witt fighting out of Glory MMA. Phil Rowe training with the boys over at Fusion XL. So he's getting some really good jiu-jitsu work in there with Adolfo Vieira, Jacare Sosa. Both of these guys out of the United States. So this fight was supposed to happen a while back, evidently. This was Jason Witt and James Krause had handpicked Phil Rowe as an opponent. They saw things that they thought that Jason would be able to exploit on tape, and they picked out this fight. One of them got hurt, and I think Jason wanted this fight, so it got made again, and here we are. So obviously, I think that was important to mention that this is a fight that Jason and James Krause have wanted for a while now. They definitely see something in Phil's game that they feel like they can totally exploit and get an easy win here. I don't see it, but I'm not James Krause, man, and I'm not Jason Witt. But it's going to be a really interesting one to break down. Sorry, it's been a very long week. I am working on my first Paloma of the evening here. But when we look at the experience numbers, we're going to see Jason Witt with a nice little experience advantage here. He's got 15 more professional fights. He's got 120 more minutes in the professional cage. Both of these guys' average fight time is almost identical. And Jason Witt's been a pro mixed martial artist for about a year and a half longer than Phil Rowe. And then if we look at the UFC experience, you see Witt with one more fight, but it's Rowe who's actually got 11 more minutes in the cage. The average fight time in the UFC for Jason Witt has been 5.8 minutes, while it's been about 11 and a half for Phil Rowe. And when we look at the finish stats here, we're going to see that Jason Witt has finished 58% of his 19 wins inside the distance here, 42% by sub, 16% by knockout, 42% by decision. And then we've got Phil Rowe in his 8 wins. He has finished 100% of them, 4 of them by submission, 4 of them by knockout. And then we see that in his 1 loss, he's been knocked out once. In his 3 losses, he's been knocked out once and he's been decisioned twice. But very alarming to look at here for Jason Witt. We've got 7 professional losses. All of them have been inside the distance, you guys. 5 by knockout, 2 by submission. Jason Witt has been finished in 100% of his pro losses. So yeah, this is definitely going to be, I feel that all right, well, let's start with these striking statistics, you guys, because I want to bring up the biggest hole in Jason Witt's game before we talk about how I think this fight's going to take place, or at least how I feel each guy's game plan should be in order to, exploit what these guys, what their opponent's weakness is here. And for Jason Witt, we see that he's landing 2.63 significant strikes per minute. He's absorbing 3.1 and negative significant strike differential of 0.47. A pretty good striking accuracy sitting up here at about 50%. And a nice power number here. He's landing a knockdown on 1.64% of the total significant strikes that he's landed, 0.65 knockdowns for 15 minutes. Now, the striking defense is 50% for Jason Witt. That is not good. He's very, very hittable on the feet. And what's even worse than that, you guys, is that he's getting knocked down on 2.78% of the total significant strikes that he's absorbed. So he's been hit only 72 times in the UFC, but 2 of them knocked him down. So, almost 3% of the significant strikes landed against him in 4 fights have resulted in 2 knockdowns here. So he's very, very chinny, averaging getting knocked down 1.29 times for 15 minutes. And we're going to see that Phil Rowe throws a lot more volume than Jason Witt does. He's a lot more accurate, and he also has power. He's landing 2 knockdowns in 3 fights in 172 significant strikes landed. That's 0.87 knockdowns for 15 minutes. But while he has this positive significant strike differential, he's also showing a 52% striking defense. That's not good. And he's being knocked down on about 2% of the significant strikes that are landed against him. So he's been knocked down 3 times in 3 fights, while Jason Witt's only been knocked down twice in 4 fights. So both of these guys are what you would call chinny. They both leave their feet when they get hit hard. And both of these guys are landing a knockdown on more than 1% of the significant strikes that they're landing. So this is going to be like Lou Betya put it at the beginning here, a car crash of a fight. So the way I kind of see this going, though, is, I don't think Jason Witt's going to be trying to knock out Phil Rowe standing up because he's at a 10.5-inch reach disadvantage here. And that would be a really stupid thing for him to do because he does have good wrestling. And because we've seen Phil Rowe not only taken down, but kept on his back. And we've seen Orion Kosi actually have some success holding him up against the cage as well. So while Phil Rowe will be able to lose minutes by just leaving his back on the cage and leaving his back on the mat, and he's such a huge welterweight, I wouldn't be surprised if he, kind of had a really rough weight cut here. And I do know that Dan Levy sent out a tweet yesterday mentioning that Phil Rowe was supposed to be on his show. He was going to interview him, but Phil had to cancel. And Dan said that the reason he was canceling was because the weight cut for this week was going very rough. So Phil's got that to contend with. This is feeling like a fight that won't go to decision. They're both chinny. They both have a lot of power. They're going to be pushing a pace, both of them, because I think Jason Witt, in order to keep his very suspect chin safe, is going to have to wrestle Phil. He's going to have to try to win minutes by keeping his back up against the cage and getting takedowns and working him on the ground. And Phil Rowe, I think, is going to want to keep this fight standing to use that 10.5-inch reach advantage. And dude, this guy hits hard. When you watch the tape on him, he throws strikes with very bad intentions. And the thing is, he's so long, he can throw hooks and he can throw the straight punches, and they all hurt. And he definitely loves to dig to the body too. While Jason Witt tends to throw those hooks, he just loves to wing those hooks. And the problem is being at a 10-inch reach disadvantage, if he's opening up his chest and winging hooks, Phil can come right back down the middle on a counter. And boy, when you touch Jason Witt, he goes down. You see him in some of these fights where he's even won and he's getting knocked down in some of these fights. So he's definitely got a bullseye on his chin, and he does not have good striking defense, and he gets hit way too much to be chinny. So very interesting striking matchup that we have here. But I think the way that I'm reading this is that Jason Witt's going to be wanting to take this fight to the ground, protect that chin, not be boxing in the center of the ring with a guy who's got a 10.5-inch reach advantage, and for all practical purposes has a power advantage too. So I think that the grappling is going to be very important here. So let's take a look at these grappling stats. But before we do, we've got my guy DFS by the numbers in the room saying, "Oh, yes, give me Rowe inside the distance. Bookies need to give me plus 130. And that's an excellent point. We'll talk about that line, Brady, because I'm on Rowe inside the distance here too. I mean, 100% of Rowe's wins have come inside the distance. 100% of Witt's losses have come inside the distance. 7 pro losses for Witt, 8 pro wins for Rowe. That's a 15-fight sample size where the twain shall meet at a 100% finish rate for Rowe win, Witt loss, 15-fight sample size. So, yeah, I am going to be betting when I do like Rowe in this fight, so I will be betting Rowe inside the distance. The problem is there's been some line movement, and we will address that after we get through the rest of these stats. And while the money line has come in and a lot of money has been put on Jason Witt, so Phil Rose went to like minus 160. He was at earlier in the week. Now he's sitting at about minus 118 out there on Bet Online. So with all that money coming in on Rowe, we're not really seeing the KO or the inside the distance props move yet. So we got to wait, like Brady says, to get about to plus 130 before we're getting the value that we deserve with as much line movement as we've seen here for Witt. But good to see DFS by the numbers in the room. And Mark Schillingberg said, "Hey, old lady took a peek at the screen last night and said, man, your boy Weezy has some nice hair." I said, "Dear, yes, he does." I was so DFS by the numbers, myself, my guy the Monk, and Luke from Sparring with Reality, we're doing a DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And we're keeping score all year. We're all putting in a lineup every week. And whoever, has the worst score at the end of the year is going to have to deal with some kind of a punishment. And one of the suggestions was that the loser had to dye their hair Phil Hawes blonde. And I went white as a sheet and said, I am not doing that. There is no way. Can you imagine how creepy I would look with a head of like Ric Flair like blonde hair? I don't think it's got to stay brown. It's got to stay brown with a little bit of gray streaks that are in here. If I lose my hair, you guys, I literally have nothing left. So thank you, Mark, for pointing that out. And thank you to Mark's woman for saying that I have lovely hair. I am forever in your debt for that. You absolutely made a young man's night tonight. Thank you. And we got Tristan Sherhouse in the room saying, Weezy, thanks for all the content this week. You've been grinding. I appreciate that, Tristan, and I appreciate you hanging out with us here, man. The great Lord Witt. Yes. And we got Blood Money MMA Bet saying, what's up, Weezy? Great show as always. I appreciate that, Blood Money. You're always supporting, brother. It's much love coming at me to you, brother. And we got Nick Alexander saying, Gabe Green set the blueprint for Witt. Yeah, Gabe Green kicked the shit out of Rowe's calves. And I think he easily could have finished Rowe had he kept going to that technique. But also Gabe Green took down Rowe and held him there. And that's what one of the concerns I have here for Rowe is that he can give up too many minutes with his back on the cage and his back on the mat. And he doesn't show the kind of urgency that I would like to see with him getting back to the feet where he is at his most dangerous. So, yeah, absolutely, man. I agree with you there 100%, Nick. And we got Blood Money MMA Bet saying Weezy gets all of his prediction power from his hair. The Samson of cappers. Dude, if I go bald, there's going to be nothing left, you guys. I probably have to cancel the channel at that point. Nobody's going to want to look at me without this beautiful head of hair on my head because underneath it, there ain't much left, you guys. And we got my guy, Nandalal Rosaya, sharp provolone Witt. Nandalal, thank you for supporting the show, brother. It's much love, man. I really appreciate it. Let's get into these grappling stats, you guys. Let me get this here in center in the screen so we can take a look at this. There's some interesting numbers here in the grappling. Okay, perfect. So Jason Witt in his 4 fights has attempted 22 takedowns, and he's gotten 10 of them. 45% takedown accuracy, 6.46 takedowns per 15 minutes, 1.29 submission attempts per 15 minutes, and he's getting 51.47% control time. Excellent job of controlling his opponents, using his wrestling to get the fight to the ground and grinding it out there on the ground, winning a ton of minutes there. That's how you bank rounds. That's how you win minutes, and that's how you win decisions. And Jason Witt has done an excellent job of doing that. People haven't even tried to really wrestle Witt yet. We've only had 1 takedown attempt against Jason Witt. He stopped it, and he's out controlling his opponents 51.47% to 4.31%. So that means about 45% of Jason Witt's UFC fights have stayed standing. And in that 45%, he's been knocked down twice and KO'd twice. Semmelsberger and Sato. And both Semmelsberger and Sato basically got him with the first punch that they landed. Semmelsberger is an orthodox fighter. Sato is a lefty. So it wasn't like he just has one kind of guy that can find his chin, dude. That chin can be found basically anytime Jason Witt is standing. And because he throws those wide hooks, you know, he does leave himself to be countered and hit right in that chin. And that's why I think that even though Jason Witt would have a lot of success throwing calf kicks, man, if he doesn't set him up, he's going to get his fucking lights shut out. Phil Rowe's going to come right down the middle with that straight right, and he's going to separate him from his consciousness. I wouldn't even waste time trying to kick Phil Rowe's calves unless I was hiding them behind combinations in my hands first. Because, man, if Phil, you know, if you start hurting him, he's going to be looking to counter, and you don't protect yourself, that will be a big problem. So Jason Witt, though, does have the ability here in the stats, and we see it right there, that this guy can absolutely win minutes on the ground with his wrestling. And then if we look at Phil Rowe on the other side, he's gotten 2 takedowns out of 6 attempts, 33%, not bad, not nearly as good as Witt, 0.87 takedowns per 15 minutes, no submission attempts yet in the UFC, and he is controlling his opponent 17% of the time and being out-controlled 28, or he's being controlled 28.26% of the time. Phil Rowe has only shown 50% takedown defense. So, there's obviously going to be a path here for Jason Witt to use that wrestling to win a ton of minutes here. So Jason Witt, 22 takedown attempts in 4 fights. That is 5.5 takedown attempts per fight. That is 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. 6.46 per 15 minutes, 2.5 per fight. And Witt has been in the cage 34 minutes, and we're showing almost 30% control time against. So that is about 10 minutes of control time that he's yielded on those 5 takedowns and 10 takedown attempts. So that's almost 2 minutes of hold down time per takedown. That's a great way to lose minutes and lose rounds. So, this is why I see this as a binary fight. Now, it's not a binary fight. Jason Witt has power on the feet, and Rowe is chinny. So absolutely, Jason Witt could land a big shot just like Phil Rowe can. And yeah, Jason Witt can take down Phil Rowe and control him. But Phil Rowe's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and this guy's training with some of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athletes in the world in Vieira and Jacare. So he is not going to see anything from Jason Witt that he hasn't seen before and seen from a much more accomplished Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So it's not really binary, because Phil Rowe can certainly grapple and Jason Witt can certainly strike here. But I just feel like Jason Witt needs to stay safe with his wrestling and top control. And then Phil Rowe needs to maximize his win condition of stopping this fight by not sitting there with his back against the cage, not trying to play submissions from his back, but by staying in the center of the cage, using that 10.5-inch reach advantage and dropping those Bs on that bullseye chin of Jason Witt. Let's look at these strength of schedule numbers here, you guys. Now, we've only got 3 fights for Rowe, and we've got 4 fights for Witt. But the strength of schedule is clearly in favor of Witt here. While the ratio is almost the same, we see that Jason Witt is fighting more experienced competition, but not really experienced competition. So, the strength of schedule stats to me really aren't that important here. We got a small sample size. The ratio is similar, and Phil Rowe is fighting much less experienced opponents, but it's not like a 2.5 and 2.25 opponent, which is Jason Witt's average opponent, is some UFC veteran that's a stud. So both of these guys have fought mediocre competition, and Phil Rowe has probably fought a little bit worse competition. We're going to give Witt the strength of schedule advantage here. And then if we look at the last 5, we see that Jason Witt has a majority decision win over Bryan Barberena. That was one of the great 3rd rounds in the UFC last year. If you have not seen the Jason Witt Bryan Barberena fight, I would encourage you to go and watch that one. It's an absolute banger. The 3rd round is an all-timer. And then we got Matt Semmelsberger knocked out Witt in the first 30 seconds. Cole Williams, awful UFC fighter, 0-2 in the UFC, missed weight by 5 pounds in both UFC performances, and was finished inside the distance in both UFC losses. Cole Williams, ass. And then we got Takashi Sato here, knocked out Witt with a straight left about 45 seconds into that fight. And then regional scene win over Zach Bucha for Jason Witt. So he's 3-2 in his last 5. Phil Rowe got a 2nd round knockout win over Orion Kosi. He lost via unanimous decision to Gabe Green. He got a Contender Series win by knockout over Leon Shabazian, a win by submission over Matt McKeon, and a win by submission over Andrew Hellner. So if we go into the records for each one of these guys, take a little bit deeper dive into the stats here. We can see before the UFC, this is Jason Witt. He's got that win over Bucha and FAC. He's got a win over Roberto Navis, 10-4, Final Fight Championship. A win over an 11-11 Cliff Wright in the KC Fighting Alliance. A win over Smash Khan Morvari, 14-7 at LFA 50. 4 canceled bouts in 2018, all on the same date. Not sure what happened there. Knocked out in the 2nd round by Hugh Pilley, 6-3. He got a 3rd round knockout win over Mark Lemminger. That was a great fight, but Mark Lemminger was this close to finishing Jason Witt in the 2nd because he landed a punch with 10 seconds left and it put Witt on skates. Almost finished him, but Witt was saved by the bell. But he came back strong in the third round and got a big win. We see wins over Ty Freeman, UFC veteran Jake Lindsay in KC Fighting Alliance, Kenny Lycia, Wade Johnson, a loss to Justin Patterson in round 3 in Bellator, win over Craig Eckelberg, a loss to Dakota Cochran in Victory FC. He got his back taken there and just didn't have much for him. He got a win via an illegal knee against Isaac Valley Flag, a win by knockout in the first round over Ryan Dixon, and then regional scene wins over Josh Tully and Jeremy Small and Tommy O'Neill. Chance Rencounter knocked him out here. That's a good fight to watch because Rencounter really had a good first round, but with about 90 seconds left in the first round, Rencounter had been wrestling quite a bit. He was wrestling Witt and taking him down quite easily, but he looked gassed. And he went back to his stool absolutely gassed after the first round. And in the second round, you could tell he already had his hands on his hips. He was stepping back, taking huge breaths. Then he landed a shot, and Witt went down. I mean, the problem with Witt, if you're betting him, you guys, is that it's just you're going to be holding your breath literally every second that the fight is standing. And even if it's only standing 1/6 of the seconds this fight lasts, there's a really good chance Phil Rowe's going to land one of those bees, man, and it's gonna sting Witt, and it's gonna probably end the fight. This guy just does not like being hit, and he's been finished in all 7 of his pro losses. So, it's just you can get the win out of Witt here. There's a number of different ways that he can win, but it just feels like that chin is so much worse than Rowe's even. But Chance got that knockout win there 56 seconds into round 2, and he had maybe about 30 seconds more of gas before he was going to absolutely just collapse. So the fact that he was able to get that win in Titan FC there back in 2013. It's a long time ago, but it's worth mentioning at least. And then we can go through Philip Rowe's career here and see the win over Orion Kosi. And, you can watch that fight. That's an interesting fight, you guys. Kosi wins that first round clearly. He gets a takedown, gets a couple minutes of control, and then Rowe gets up, but he can't get off the cage. And Kosi kind of puts his back up against the cage. Finally, Rowe, with about 30 seconds left in the first round, gets some distance, and he lands like 5 or 6 good shots that really hurt Kosi. Then the round ends. Kosi goes back to business in the second, shoots for the takedown, can't get it, but then he puts Rowe's back up against the cage there and just holds him there. But then Rowe starts landing some big shots. He's going in for the finish. He's steps in for a guillotine for a second, but then doesn't do it because he knows he's got Kosi hurt, gets back off, and then starts throwing the strikes again, finishes the fight. And, Kosi won a ton of seconds in that fight, you guys. If we look at the actual advanced stats for that fight, let me just search for Witt here. Where is the search function in this shit? I got to do it in my Excel. Is my Excel up? Yeah, it is. All right, cool. All right, advanced stats, and we're going to search for just Kosi. There will only be one in here. What? How about Rowe? I think I must have something highlighted in the sheet. Rowe. There we go. So this is Phil Rowe's fighter history here. And this line right here is the Orion Kosi fight. 561 seconds of fight, and 400 of it almost was controlled by Kosi. So Kosi, 394 divided by 561, controlled 70.23% of this fight, and he still got knocked the fuck out. That's how powerful Phil Rowe is, and Orion Kosi's got a better chin than Jason Witt does, I can assure you of that. And this is the kind of fight that Witt is going to have to fight in order to be successful here. So, you guys, the pick is going to be Phil Rowe inside the distance here. But I just wanted to show you guys. Let me see if I can get this reduced just a little bit here. Okay. But let's finish looking at the record here of Phil Rowe. And this is also very important. This guy grappled with Gordon Ryan. I get from what I heard, he was doing okay until he got submitted. Gordon Ryan's one of the best grapplers on the planet, and this guy's signing up in order to grapple with this guy. So, even if Witt does take him down and hold him down, there's nothing that says that Phil Rowe can't catch this dude. He's training with killers, and he's training with some of the best BJJ players in the world. He's been on the mat with some of the best BJJ players in the world. Most recently, Gordon Ryan. He got submitted in a custom rules match here. But he's Fury Pro Grappling. He's out there doing it. He's losing. Lost to Checo, lost to Steele, lost to Ryan, lost to Piersma. But he's professionally grappling, and he's sharpening that part of his game. And the hands are already really sharp for Rowe. But before Kosi, we had the loss to Gabe Green here. Unanimous decision loss. Shabazian, he beats him 16 seconds into round 3. And then a win over Matt McKeon, 4-5, guillotine choke, 2.5 rounds, 2.5 minutes into round 2. Rear naked choke over Andrew Hellner, 1-2. Win by punches, 0-3, Cole Mailani, 0-1, Josh Zuckerman, 1-1, Ian Brofsky. A loss in a kickboxing match, a win against Bethea, House of Fame, 0-1, and then Justin Lesko and Roberto Young both beat him the first 2 professional fights of his career. So he lost his first 2, and since then he's been 8-1. But the pre-UFC competition is not nearly as good as Jason Witt. So definitely a strength of schedule advantage here for Witt. Definitely an experience advantage here for Witt. And then we're going to have a big tail of the tape advantage for Rowe, a big striking advantage for Rowe, and the grappling I would give to Witt because I think he's more likely to win minutes there. While I think Rowe, if he's going to have any success, is just going to have to win a moment and catch a submission with like a arm bar, a triangle, a guillotine, something like that. Maybe even a Darce choke with those long ass arms. If he's got a good front choke series, with Jason Witt shooting in for singles and doubles, and potentially he could snatch up one of those. But yeah, so Jason Witt, like I said, let's just go over it one more time real quick. The experience advantage, the strength of schedule advantage, and the wrestling advantage. Phil Rowe has probably got a little bit better conditioning, definitely a lot better striking, and he's younger and longer here. A 100% finish rate in Rowe's wins, 100% finish rate in Witt's losses, and Witt in the UFC has finished one of his 2 wins, but it was against Cole Williams, who's a total bum. And Phil Rowe was decisioned, but he could have been finished. So I think that Witt's best path is to win via decision here, and Phil Rowe's best path is to win inside the distance. Therefore, I don't really want to play the time props because I think they're already baked into the line here. But let's look at these lines here real quick before we go. Jason Witt right now is sitting here, and look at how much money has come in. I mean, as soon as we broke this resistance here, which was at plus 135, right? Once we got down to plus 137 here, you just see it all fall apart. And that's over the last day and a half here that we've went from Jason Witt being plus 137 to plus 110. A lot of money coming in on Witt. And Philip Rowe at the beginning of the week when I first started looking was sitting here about minus 175, and then starts coming in around minus 165. And now he could be had as good as minus 134 on the aggregate and as good as minus 118 here on Bet Online. But as my guy DFS by the numbers was talking about, Rowe inside the distance here is barely moving. See, it opened at plus 105, and now it's sitting at plus 110. It's barely any move at all. Meanwhile, the money line went from minus 170 to minus 110. So I would like to see these inside the distance props get juiced up a little bit more before we go after them, because this is not in line. Phil Rowe shouldn't be plus 110 inside the distance when he's minus 118 on the money line. You might as well just bet the money line. So, yeah, but the pick still is Rowe inside the distance, you guys. Jason Witt by decision could be a very interesting bet as well. And you can get that as good as plus 275. So if you think Witt will be able to get those takedowns and hold Rowe down and, kind of work that clock and not give Rowe enough time to land those Bs, then perhaps we could see him get this win. And I think that that's his best path as well. Let's see what we've got in the chat here, you guys. Mark saying, hey, everyone, make sure you give that like button a little tap. Show Weezy some love. He puts in a lot of work for all of us degenerates. Much love, Mark. I appreciate that, man. And yeah, I second that motion. Hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying the content here. Hit the subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. It's much appreciated when you do. And yeah, we're going to have a lot more to come here in 2022. And as I mentioned a couple times already this week, this card is the first of 8 straight weeks of UFC cards, you guys. So we better strap it down. We got a lot of work to do. Bob Better saying, I don't trust either of these guys, both so inconsistent. Yeah, Rowe can give up a lot of minutes on his back, and he can lose large chunks of the fight by just being lazy and being a slow starter. And then Witt, it's really hard to trust somebody that can get slept just like that. So couldn't agree more about Better. That's what makes it such an interesting fight to talk about. And saying, haha, the Samson of the MMA gambling game. Hell yeah, dude. And Chris Calanza is saying the best in the business, Uncle Weezy. Much appreciated, Chris. Good to see you in here, brother. And Sergio Zabute saying, I have no idea how this is going to go down. So many variables from weight cut and whose chin is better. Yeah. And that's another thing too. If you're on the Rowe side, I would just wait until Friday and make sure he doesn't pass out on the scale, because there's already some grumblings out there. Dan Levy did send out that tweet, and he's the guy that knows a lot of people in this business, has been around for a while. So, I tend to trust him when he says that. So, yeah, we got to watch Rowe weigh in here. But if Rowe has a really lousy weight cut, I do like Witt by decision, or even potentially Witt third round, because he could absolutely grind him out. But I also think that this could look a lot like Danilo Marquez versus Kennedy and Nchekwu, where Witt has a lot of success early, gets a lot of takedowns, gets a lot of control time, and Rowe maybe threatens with submissions and stays safe off his back. But man, if he doesn't have the gas tank to wrestle for 3 rounds and he can't get that takedown in the third, boy, it's just a matter of time before Rowe lands those hands. So there's a lot of different ways this fight can go down. My pick is going to be Rowe inside the distance, but I have to wait to bet that until I see Rowe on the scale and I make sure that he makes weight and he looks like he didn't kill himself to do so. And B, I need to see that inside the distance line move from where it's sitting here, plus 105, plus 110. Not thick enough, baby. We need it up around plus 135, plus 140, especially if this line flips, because the way the money is coming in on Witt, we might see Rowe an underdog by the time this fight goes off. And then you're going to be really pissed that you only got plus 105 on inside the distance. So I'm going to wait on Phil Rowe. It's pretty clear we don't need to run to the window to bet this guy. Rough weight cut, and we don't know if he's going to be able to stop the wrestling attack of Jason Witt. All that being said, you guys, I'm picking Phil Rowe by knockout here. And that's what I'm probably going to bet if I can get a good enough line on it. You guys, it's been a long week for me. It's 11:15 Central Time here on a Wednesday night. I've been on my channel live for the last 4 nights. I appreciate each and every one of you guys that's been hanging out with me here, breaking down all these stats, finding all these angles. God bless each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me here. And I will see you guys next week on my channel. And I will be on Z's channel on Friday for his Fair Play podcast. I'll be doing a little spot on there. And on Saturday, 1 hour before the prelims start, for Best Bet on DFS by the Numbers channel. God, it's been a long week, but I appreciate each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 47, you guys. Have a great night, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for supporting the channel this week. It's much appreciated.